Choosing the right database can significantly improve your company's performance and lower costs. Stay with me because in the next few minutes, I'm going to be showing you my framework on how I select a database for performance reasons and to lower costs. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name's Christian Loves. I am from DataSolve. Please subscribe if you haven't already, if you enjoy this content and like this video. But effectively, this video is going to be a guide on how to select your database. I'm only going to be selecting a database for an OLTP use case. So quick definition, OLTP stands for Online Transaction Processing. So think of banking, order processing, or inventory management. For example, whenever we make a transaction, we need that to be readily available, and we are making high numbers of transactions. So to simplify things, because there are many different types of use cases in the database world, we're going to simplify things and only stick to an OLTP use case. So having said that, where do we begin in this crazy world, or where do we begin in choosing our database? And I guess we're going to just take a step back and we need to first assess your needs. What is your transaction volume? What is the complexity, or what is the transactions per second that we need to make? Next, we need to select the deployment method, and there is a difference in the performance depending on the deployment method we choose. Let me be more clear, more specific on that. So I'm assuming you are in the cloud when you are choosing your database. So you can opt for two options. You can opt for a database as a service or a self-managed database. So self-managed, meaning that we need to take care of the patching, the updating, and this can come at a higher overhead. Whereas we can choose our database as a service, and that will effectively alleviate all that technical input. So how do we know which deployment method to choose for our database? And a quick rule of thumb, there are many minor differences, but I'm just going to say a quick rule of thumb would be if you're using a self-managed DBMS, you're going to be paying less costs than a DB database as a service. And on a side note, guys, if you are interested in performance and measuring performance, in research for this video, I did manage to find an article or a benchmark test by the BenchAnt team, and I'm showing you my screen now, and this basically is comparing database as a service versus a self-managed DBMS, and it is measuring throughput. In throughput, basically the higher the better. We can see here that the Postgres self-managed database is actually outperforming the database as a service. Now, mind you, this is only using an AWS EC2 instance. And when it comes to performance, you need to take things with a grain of salt because there's many variables that can alter the outcome of a performance or a benchmark test. But I thought I'd throw this in because it is quite interesting to look at that. So back to where I was. So I was talking about whether you choose a self-managed DBMS or database as a service, and I concluded that choosing a self-managed would obviously be a lot cheaper, and it would give you a higher level of customization. So these are just things that you need to consider. So when it comes to buying a machine in the cloud and we want to optimize for performance and lower our costs, where do we begin? And it's kind of a little bit confusing as to how we select our machine because, is there any reason why we're selecting the machine? So I've kind of turned to ChatGPT to pull up a crude formula, and this will kind of give us a bit of guidance into how to select our machine, and then we can further compare from there. So we need to know our active data. If we have 10 gigabytes of active data, now you might be asking what's active data, and that's effectively the most used data in the organization. Apologize if that's a bit of a vague definition, but that's what we mean by active data. So we can see that 10 gigabytes, we can see this formula here for active data. So this will give us an approximation of how much RAM we need for the machine, how many cores we need for the machine, This doesn't look that accurate, so you can bump this up to, I guess, 2 CPU cores, the disk space here. So if we kind of have something to play with now, and we can kind of go to our comparison marketplaces to find the best cost for this machine. So RAM 4 gigabytes. So I'm using this website cloudprice.net to kind of select the machines. So the cores we needed was, let's say 2. So we're just going to put in 2 here, and we need 4 gigabytes of memory, which is a pretty small machine, but this is just an example. So we're basically shopping for the best price and the best performance. And mind you, this is a pay-as-you-go model. So we need to take into account that if we reserve for 1 year, the prices will go down. And this website is good because it does compare the top providers. Bear in mind, there are other options and there are other marketplaces, which brings me to this other website. If you are interested in, really getting the best price, the trade-off is that, the cost will be a lot lower and there might not be any lock-ins, but you may reduce the number of features in your machine. So these are things you just need to be aware of when using an alternative provider. If you are really crazy on performance and performance is all you think about, you can use this website. I mean, this is for analytical machines, but if you want to run your own performance test, you need to following the TPC benchmark. Mind you, this is only for OLTP databases. There are other tests for different use cases. I'm going to step back for a bit from analyzing all these different machines, and you might have noticed that I haven't actually made a claim for a specific database vendor such as Postgres or Oracle. And the reason for that is if you throw a dart at all the top vendors or providers, more likely than not, you're going to find a system that suits your needs. If you actually compare the features, all the top database vendors, they are so similar in what they provide. And it does come down to a bias of which SQL dialect you prefer, but it's a much of a muchness. The only real difference we can see in these top providers is the fact that MySQL and Postgres are both free. So, if you want to save on some money and you have some development skills, you can go down that pathway of using those two open source vendors. Okay guys, so to wrap things up, this has been the analysis of how to choose your OLTP database. I know it's quite high level, but if you want to do a more deep dive, I'd recommend looking into this TPC OLTP benchmark test to test out your databases. You can use this website, cloudprice.net, to really get the lowest price and best performance. If you want to use an alternative vendor, there are so many cloud providers. It is a little bit overwhelming. I was using Linode. Again, they all come at trade-offs. So this video has just kind of opened your mind a little bit on the alternatives. By no means can I provide a definitive answer in this space, but hopefully it's kind of giving you something to think about. And that's been the video, guys, on how to go about choosing your database for an OLTP use case. Thank you guys for watching.